We know that right now the stakes are high that all of you are facing. And the world is crazed. There is no time. You are racing to keep your promises, and you can leave yourselves behind. So the world is crazed, and this is what real-time leadership is about. The world is crazed, but we don't have to be. There's never enough time, but we can use it wisely. We can keep our promises and commitments and hang on to what it is that really matters to us. But to do that, we need to be able to stop. Viktor Frankl survived 4 concentration camps in World War II and came out a better person. And the piece of wisdom that he shared with us that I really want to help you see for yourselves is that between every stimulus and response, there's a space. So stimulus, what happens to you, what you're faced with, a Mission Impossible project, a threat, an opportunity, a promotion, a stimulus. Response, what you think, what you feel, what you do, how you lead. Between every stimulus and response, there is a space. And what Viktor Frankl says is in that space is our freedom to choose, our freedom to be able to know what we really need to do, who we need to be, how we need to connect to others and to ourselves. And that's what real-time leadership is about. How do we find that space, live in that space? And when you can do that, you can be a better human and a better leader. So what is it really about? You want to kind of make that space, but you want to be able to overcome your reflexes. Real-time leadership is about transcending your reflexes and your default behaviors, and to be able to make wise choices. So before you can think about making your wise choices, you need to think about what are your stupid choices? I make a lot of those. So what is your default? Under high stakes situations, we become more exaggerated versions of ourselves. So if you're someone who dives in, you're really going to dive in. If you're someone who really thinks a lot, you may have analysis paralysis. So for me, my default is to, like most founders, is to just sort of drive. Drive myself to the breaking point, drive other people to their breaking point. And one really heartbreaking situation of mine was I actually kind of broke someone. I certainly broke a relationship. And for me, what happened was I was going through a painful season, and you guys have, probably had times in your lives that were horrible. And for me, I had to break up a really important relationship. My best friend for years moved. Then my father died. And my parents had one of those horrible divorces where yours truly was the pawn. And my mother then discovered I had a good relationship with my father that I'd hidden from her. She loses it. She's screaming at me, "Why are you even crying? He never loved you." Okay, this is a dark period. So at the end of that tunnel, though, was this relationship, this woman that I met who introduced me to her whole ecosystem, and life really brightened up. And as she brought me into her life, I thought, well, I want to bring her into mine. So I basically bullied my department chair to bring her into our program at Harvard. That lasted about 4 weeks, and he said something to me like, you got her in, you get her out today. So I don't know if you guys have ever had to fire your best friend or do something really hard, but if I had known there was the possibility of creating a space between the stimulus and response, I wouldn't have had that car crash. So what real-time leadership is based on is my co-author David Noble was a strategist and operating executive. So we pull on military strategy, business strategy, special forces stuff, basically any psychological theory you can shake a stick at, and any leadership approach. So we smushed it all together, and we came up with 4 components of how you can make that space, make the most of every moment, and really be operating at your best. So the acronym we came up with was MOVE, M-O-V-E. M, it's mindfully alert. O, to be an options generator. V, to validate your vantage point. And E, to engage and affect change. I'll trot through these, and then we'll really dive in. So M, to be mindfully alert. Mindful, I think you know, centered, basically not prejudging, sort of a growth mindset, but alert like an athlete. What's going on around you, inside of you, and what you do. So that's M. O, to be that options generator, is for any challenge, there's 4 sets of things, 4 options, option pathways, and I'll go into those in just a bit. But M, how you be mindfully alert. O, to be an options generator. V is to validate your vantage point. And the enemy of vantage point accuracy is ego, and how to overcome ego if you're like, I'm smart, or how to overcome that ego like, I don't know what I'm talking about, I don't think, so I don't want to say anything. That's also ego. And how to engage and affect change. So that's what we're going to look at. And you know, it matters in general. One of the things we found is this works at the top of the house. To our surprise, we really discovered how much this works in your own house. So as we're talking about things, think of a challenge you have as a leader or at home, and how can this material really help you? Because that's why I'm here. Really trying to pull on everything I've learned, you know, 40,000 hours of coaching and teaching and all that kind of stuff, because I really, really want you guys to be able to be extraordinary. So let's roll up our sleeves with M. Mindfully alert. Mindfully alert to what? And this is what we call the 3 dimensions of leadership. What you do, who you are, and how you relate. So what is it that you really need to do? Sometimes it seems obvious. Like for those of you who are parents, when your offspring says, can I watch TV? I'm done with my homework. What do you think you're supposed to do? Especially when it's an unholy mess. Get the homework done, right? Well, you're going to start asking yourselves, whether it's a child or a poor, you're going to ask yourself, well, what do I really need to do? And sometimes it's something bigger. Like you can be walking in, so say you're my team, and I'm going to start our meeting, and I feel like we have to make a decision. But if I say, what do we really need to do? It could be, no, we need to align the team. Or I walk in and think we have to align the team, but no, actually, we need to make a decision. So just checking in with yourself. So what do I need to do? Then a really powerful one that I hope stays with you is, who do I need to be? Who do I need to be right now? So I came up with this when it was New Year's resolution time, and we were all going to make like the same resolutions. And I thought, well, forget that. Who do I want to be? So I want you guys to try this. The first time I did this, you don't have to be extreme as me, but the first time I did this, I asked myself that question 80 times in a day. Like something would happen, who do you want to be? Someone cuts you off in traffic, who do you want to be? Someone gives you a report that isn't so great, who do you want to be? Okay, so how do you do that? And so we worked with this one CEO. This was back during COVID, and she was asking herself that question before every interaction, and I want you guys to try that. Before any interaction, ask yourself, who do I want to be right now? So she did that, and she got at the very end of her day, like the 16th or the 20th Zoom call, and how do you think she felt? Kill me now, I want out of here. But then she said, who do I want to be right now? And the thought that came to her was, the least important meeting of my day is the most important meeting of theirs. And a very different CEO showed up. So start asking yourself that. So that's, okay, what do I need to do? Who do I need to be? And then how do I need to relate? Okay, how do I need to relate? Like, you know, how do I really help connect to others, be able to lead through others, relate to myself? But, you know, we tend to go with the golden rule, right? You guys know the golden rule? Right? Do unto others as you would want done unto you. Well, that's better than having no rule, but it's kind of a low bar. Okay, we know some who have like no rule. But what we talk about is the platinum rule, how to relate to others as they would want, which may not be what I would want. So, okay, so you can imagine some of you here are extroverts. So imagine you are the extrovert boss, and your report is an introvert, and your introvert's running into trouble. Okay, golden rule. Oh my goodness, he's in trouble. Let me give him a pep talk. Oh yes, introvert is saying, please just leave me alone. Okay, now flip. Introvert boss, extrovert reports in trouble. This person's having trouble. The introvert boss thinks, oh, give them space. And this person feels abandoned. So I used to say, are your people puppies or llamas? Know your people. Puppies, when they're in trouble or you want them to do something more, you pat them and go, good puppy. Llamas, I happen to know how to train llamas for a very weird reason. But if you want the llama to do what you want, as soon as it does what you want, you do this. And the llama will do that. So are your people puppies? Are they llamas? Don't treat one like the other. So mindfully alert. What do I really need to do? Who do I need to be right now? And how can I relate to this person as they need, not as I might choose? So that's M. Oh, options generator, the power of generating options. So this one is based on a lot of research, but we all have willpower. If you didn't have tons of willpower, you wouldn't be here. But we're talking about way power. How can I know what ways, what sets of ways I can use to go forward? What options do I have? Back to reflexes, because the whole point is we want to transcend our reflexes to give ourselves choice. Like when I'm coaching one of my leaders, I often will say, I don't care what you do. I just want you to have 4 options available to you. So we've got 4 reflexes: fight, flight, freeze, befriend, and we tend to do our default. And I changed that into the stances, 4 stances as a way to really work on any issue. So like tennis. Not that I play tennis, but I used to think it was in the arms, but it's like your stance for a forehand, your stance for a backhand. What stance do you want to take towards something that's coming at you? So we came up with, okay, sort of lean in, okay, action-oriented, lean back, go with the data, lean with, go for nurturance and people, and don't lean at all, which is that capacity when something's thrown at you to not do anything. So these are like the 4 stances, and you can do them like, so by the way, every single one of these has like an entire chapter in the book. So it's like an operating manual of when you use one, when you overuse one, et cetera, But also we want each one of these things to be a split-second question you can ask yourself, because who has time, when you're doing this? So I want you to be able to really quickly think, do I lean in? Okay, does this call for action? Now you can lean in like a rugby player or like a ballerina. You can lean in with edge, you can lean in with enthusiasm, but it's like, okay, in this situation. Now, you're probably imagining people, but also imagining it's an acquisition. Do I lean in and really go ahead with this acquisition? Do I lean back and do more due diligence? How can I really take my time, ask questions, get the terrain, and then lean with? How can I really lead with nurturance? And if it's at scale, really think about culture. And then the hardest one of all, I guarantee this is the hardest one of all, is to be able to say to yourself, don't lean. When you're in a situation and you want to just do something. So, okay, so bowling ball is thrown at you. Do you just lean in and throw it back? Do you stare at it and try to figure it out? Do you find who gave it to you and give it back to them, or do you just not catch it? So in real life, I had a president who had a pretty insane CEO boss, and they would go to the board meeting, and he would just say wild things. And so whenever he did, she felt her option was lean in. No, I'm sorry, that's not what we, et cetera, and she got a bad rep with the board. Crazy CEO, fine. Her, she was in trouble. So we worked together, and first she had to learn to just pause a moment, like, don't lean. Okay, he says something crazy, shut up. Okay, then, okay, what would really work? Then the question that really turned her around was very non-intuitive, was about psychological safety. So we all know about psychological safety down, right? How can we help our reports feel safe? and maybe with their peers. But it's just as important upward. What is a way that you can make your manager feel safe? So we gave her that challenge, and when she went into the boardroom, decided that her job was to help her CEO feel safe. He then started settling down, and she really was able to make that choice. And it really changed her career, actually. And the board started seeing her as constructive. The point is, try to make space for yourself. So we have M in terms of being mindful alert to what you need to do, who you need to be, how do you need to relate. O, your options generator. You know, do you lean in and really engage, lean back and go for data, go for nurturance or reflect. Oh, the thing about the don't lean one, that the other three are what you do, right? I do in action, I do with thinking, I do in nurturance. Don't lean is more powerful because what it is it opens you up to receptive knowledge. You know that aha experience where you go, oh, I didn't know I knew that. Like, there's a famous question in coaching which just annoys the hell out of me, which is, if you knew the answer, what would it be? Okay, I thought that was the stupidest question in the world. In fact, I found it very annoying. And then one day someone asked me, and something came into my head that I didn't know I knew. So that's the whole beauty of don't lean, is see what it is that can come to you. Okay, so now V, validate your vantage point. So this one is a really good way to check yourself. And again, ego is your enemy here. But, you know, let's say you have a report of yourself and you have a point of view. And let's say the person, their point of view is like, something's wrong with this, but how do I know what it is? Or for yourself, how do I know what is a 10 out of 10 in vantage point? So we have, okay, so we've got the 3 dimensions of leadership, we have the 4 stances, and we have 5 ways to check your vantage point. So the first one, image on glasses. You're looking at something. Do you tend to have rose-colored glasses or dark gray-colored glasses when you look at something? What's your default? How can you work with that? Or it's your default, how can you team with someone? So are your glasses rosy or gray? But then are you nearsighted or farsighted? Nearsighted, tactical, what we need to do, great at the to-do list. Farsighted, looking at strategy, looking at the future. Maybe not as good on what you're doing today. But how do you then, with the eyeglasses, your vantage point, rose-colored, gray-colored, nearsighted, farsighted. So that's the first. Second one, think of your TV set. Okay, do you need a high-def, expensive TV set? Or where will a grainy picture be fine? Now, the issue is we all have an attention budget. You can only pay attention to so much before your brain gives out. So there is a way for you then to start thinking, where do I need to be detailed and hyper-focused? Where can I be impressionistic? But then also, vantage point is a collective phenomenon. How can you really be working with someone who's the opposite to you? One of the best ways to have a good vantage point is to work with someone who's slightly annoying because they see the world differently as you. Their defaults are different from you. So that's when you really need to pay attention and take in what they're seeing. Okay, so then we have the third one is breadth. You know, do I need to be looking at the entire horizon here or narrow in? You know, and by the way, the horizon behind me. You know, great for, you know, market, the future, et cetera. Not so great if you're budgeting. But to be thinking about which one do you use and how can you fit it? And then the fourth one is, of course, you know, do you become a hawk or hummingbird? What is the best way? The fifth one, though, is what are you not seeing? And I think for all of us, it's very important. And that is conscious and unconscious bias, you know, blind spots. And the whole area of there's sort of 4 areas. It's like I know what I know what I don't know. I don't know what I do know. That was if you knew the answer, what would it be? There's things that I don't realize I know and I need someone to pull them out of me. And there's I don't know that I don't know. And that's where the whole world, I think, of bias comes in, and unconscious bias. But so that's V, which leaves us to E, engage and effect change, and to do so at scale. So for that, again, flit through the M, the O, and the V. But really, like, how do you know your intent, and then how do you share it, and co-create it with the people on your team? And this one is, what are the signals that you send out? And what's the pace that you send them out? What's the intensity you send them out? And do you actually think, because you sent a couple of signals, that they've been heard? Is the signal you've given the signal that's heard? Because it doesn't matter what you say, it matters what people hear. And you can't overemphasize that. I was at a Harvard Business School executive ed thing, and someone goes, "Oh, Professor so-and-so, how do I know when I've communicated enough?" And he goes, "It's when people mock you out for it." So this one was really in purpose. And they start going, "Oh, there's the purpose guy." He goes, "Okay, you have communicated enough." So your signals. And then how do you kind of know what you can do and where that needs to stop? I think if you want to scale your leadership, and a lot of you are getting to the place where you really need to, you're a leader and your impact ripples out, but how do you then really start leading through other people? And one of the important things then is signposting. So I had one, you probably know this happens a lot. I had one CEO in particular who'd think, he'd think he was brainstorming. And then when everybody was running around doing things, he's like, "Why are they doing that?" It's like, "You told them to do that." No, I was just brainstorming. So, yes. And so how do we, we can do that too. So how do we really be aware of how to just signpost things? So that's sort of the heart of real-time leadership. It's based, by the way, on the sort of spiritual background of Viktor Frankl and Making a Space. It's also based, as I said, on massive numbers of theories. And there was a recent study where a group of 50 researchers studied 53,000 social science articles looking for what made the difference. What made the difference between what people did, the treatment they received, or the training they received, and their outcome. And it was psychological flexibility. And that is what real-time leadership can give you, is so you can have this moment, something's thrown at you, and you can make that space for yourself. And you can really do what is the wise thing, the smart thing. And again, not just to be a better leader, but to also be a better human. And what I hope we can do together and keep doing is figure out how you can use this so that you can all be extraordinary, because I think you are.